Well, good afternoon and welcome to progressiverockcentral.com. And today we have a special guest, Suzi James from Fearful Symmetry. And we're going to talk about their second album, their latest album, The Difficult Second, which was released back in July. I did a review for it. Fantastic album. Thanks, Anne, for pointing it out to me, and from Bad Dog Promotions. She let me know about these guys. I hadn't known a thing about them, but really love the album. It's fantastic. And it's their sophomore album. And well, Suzi, say hi and tell us a little bit about you, and especially the name. I love the name of that group, but go ahead. How did you come up with that name?
Hi, Mark, and thanks for this opportunity to introduce myself and the music and the band. Um, the band doesn't exist as a traditional band in that it was an idea that was born out of myself and my cousin Jeremy Shorts getting together. He was playing a bit of bass and I wanted to get into a bit more jazz and things, and he was looking at jazz, and we used to just jam together here in the studio. But I was writing music for what was going to be a solo album, a number of instrumental tracks. And one of them, I came up, I was getting into keyboards and came up with what I thought was a nice piano um, backing track. And I just said to Jeremy, "How would you like to write the lyric for this?" And he took it away and came back with a song called "Louder Than Words." And what he'd done is rated his thesis on William Blake when he did a master's many years ago, and wrote this song using the lyrical style of William Blake and the characters in his poetry and art. And I just built a whole load of music around it, playing just about everything. And although I don't, I haven't got room for drums, so we use a drummer that we know who's based in Tel Aviv, who we met, who was supporting, Osric's Tentacles. I don't know if you've come
Oh
across them
yeah,
at all.
yeah.
But he was in a band called Project R&L, and we just got to know him and through mutual friends. And he agreed to add drums to this, because what happened was everybody said, "Yeah, you should do more, do a whole album." So we did. And again, Jeremy wrote the rest of the lyrics, and he sang the introductory opening song, "Louder Than Words." But a lot of our friends who are musicians were very excited about the project. And we invited them as guests to play on some of the tracks, which really gave it a nice, full, rounded sort of sound. Because what we wanted to do was recreate music that we like to listen to, or the music that we've listened to over the years, and create something new with it, but harking back to the classic prog and rock that we grew up with. So that's how the first album came about, and we called it Louder Than Words. And the name Fearful Symmetry comes from a William Blake poem called Tiger, Tiger. And one of the last lines includes "Thy fearful symmetry." And Jeremy just suggested it as a name for the band. And that's how the name stuck. Leading into the second album, because of COVID and everything else, it just took a long time. I couldn't involve other musicians as I previously hoped. But I was able to, again, use our drummer, Sharon Petrova, who's based in Israel. I just sent him the backing tracks with some drum ideas, but left him to do the drum arrangements. And he just added all the drums in his own drum studio, which was fortunate. He didn't have to, because of COVID restrictions, it would have been a bigger problem otherwise. And singing on the albums is Yael Schotz, who's Jeremy's daughter, and she's a fabulous singer. I've known her as a family friend, obviously, for a long time, but as a singer in many styles of bands, from rock to straight jazz classics, very mature, broad range of songs and vocal range. At first, I wouldn't call her a prog fan, but she grew to like the songs, and now she won't stop playing.
Oh,
Stop
excellent.
playing the album. So
You
she obviously
introduced another person to Prague. Excellent.
yeah,
Another new generation.
yeah.
We
So
need more.
Jeremy wasn't so involved in the second album because he's got other interests, and I'm just absorbed in music, and I wanted to kind of go back to the music that I had been developing before the first album, and a lot of that is on the difficult second.
Tell us a little bit, because you mentioned this, and I haven't asked anyone in the past, and I should be. What are some of your influence? What are some of your favorite bands? How far?
Oh God, I could list them all night, but
Well, yeah,
I've been around a long time. I mean, I started playing guitar in my teens, like a bit late actually. And of course, I had just had my parents bought me an acoustic guitar, and I was, learning songs by James Taylor and the Beatles and all that sort of thing. And then just one day, I think we were watching a pop program on the BBC, and there was Jimi Hendrix playing Hey Joe. And my parents were kind of making all sorts of comments. I'm going, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I became, very interested in guitar and electric guitar and playing in that sort of rock style, that psychedelic thing. I even went to see. Somehow I got a free ticket to go and see John Mayall's Blues Breakers.
Oh, wow.
And he, this showing my age, but I don't care about that. But
No.
he introduced a new guitarist. He said his name's Eric Clapton, and it was his first gig with John Mayall's Blues Breakers. Of course, a couple of years later, he was in Cream and everything else. So I was into blues very much at the start, and my first gigging band was lead guitarist in a blues band, which kind of freaked a few people out. But I loved all that old stuff, going back to Robert Johnson and how it's being reintroduced in this sort of electric, blues wave that was sort of going around in late 60s, early 70s. But then I bumped into someone in a music shop who was a drummer, and we just got chatting, and he was talking about prog rock bands and going to see Camel and things like that. And I kind of got interested in that. So I went along with him to see Camel and a few other bands like that at that time. And so I started getting into prog, and we said we should form a prog band. So that was that. We had a 5-piece prog band, mostly instrumental at the time, although I did end up doing some vocals. And that was quite popular. We supported the Jim Capaldi band at one stage on the university circuit, and but not. We were all working as well, and so we couldn't sort of do it full time. We would have loved to, but one gig we were playing, we were supported by the Vapors, who had a hit with Turning Japanese or something like that, and they were the support band. And I suddenly realized that we no longer had a lot of kind of hippie-ish people watching. There was a lot of young people with, tight jeans and cropped hair and more into the sort of more energetic music. I thought, oh, this is the end of prog. So I sort of hung up my guitar for a little while. But then a couple of years later, somebody, a generation below me said, oh, I remember your band. Would you come and play in ours? And it was turned out to be a new wave band. So I found myself playing Police songs and tracks like that at that time, but then into funk and soul, covers bands. The best, the most successful covers band I was in was actually a Thin Lizzy covers band. The voice backing down, all that macho posing, and the riffing on twin lead guitars. It was brilliant. And we actually one event, I mean, we played a couple of big venues in London, Shepherd's Bush, Empire, and the London Astoria, where it was a special gig for Thin Lizzy fans. And some of the living Thin Lizzy band members joined us, and we
Oh,
ended up
wow.
jamming with Eric Bell and people like that on stage. And it was a bit nerve-wracking because I'm playing solos from Still in Love with You, which was done on the live album, Live and Dangerous.
Yeah, I remember.
And Brian Robertson was there in the audience and came up and shook my hand afterwards. um,
Oh,
but that subsided. My career was just kind of building up pressure. And I had to kind of, I was working all hours. I was a project manager for IT projects in British Airways. And although I did some, jamming and writing and all sorts like that, my last sort of 10 years, I really just didn't have time for a regular band. So I just played when I could, and, friends and family and parties and things like that. But always working on writing and composing. And then I eventually retired from British Airways and built my own home studio and started working on my original music, which I was mostly initially for my own amusement and friends and family, but people who were actual real real musicians who are making a living at it, saying, no, this is good, you should keep going, and so and to be honest, the difficult second, kind of saved my mental state during all the lockdowns and everything else, because I could just focus on music. I learned to play other instruments because I'm interested in I got interested through our friends in Israel in Middle Eastern music.
yes.
So ended up
Excellent.
playing oud on this second album, and darbuka, which is a drum. Um, and I've also started adding flute to my repertoire as well.
But you zip through a lot of
sorry.
no, you zip through a lot of bands, but
Yeah, sorry, I was rushing away
no,
there.
no, that's great. And I think somewhere in there you mentioned traffic, and
Yeah.
traffic doesn't get mentioned enough. And
I mean,
anyone that is a fan of traffic,
yeah,
I love to hear it. My favorite band is still Genesis, but
yes,
Genesis, Led Zeppelin, the Stones, but
yeah.
Traffic is right up there too. Because
And
they're able to blend the blues, jazz, rock, kind
yeah,
of like the Hotel and a lot of the great bands. But yeah, they everyone overlooks Traffic, and it's
well, that's I think is what I like to do, because I've had all these different influences from jazz to rock to, I mean, you go through all the guitarists, John McLaughlin, Al Di Meola,
yeah,
even Santana, and then coming
right.
up to Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, who I saw this summer in London. Fantastic, I just, I absorb things from them, and I'm very much into music and into different scales and exploring ideas and
Yeah,
getting outside the usual boundaries. And when I come to write, it blends a lot of these things together. I try to do it in a way that it doesn't kind of jolt you from one thing to the next, but transitions from one to the other. Just it might be a little surprise, a little, 24 bars of jazz, with walking bass and piano or something like that. And then, because some people might not like that normally, but then maybe in the middle of a prog track, they think, yeah, that's okay. I might listen to a bit more of that, But
well,
it's
you've had a lot of experience, a lot of good experiences too. So that's great to hear. How has the difficult second been received by fans in the music industry? I notice, a lot of reviews from a lot of from all over the world, but I hope it's doing well.
well, it's it has had a lot of very positive reviews and lots of great comments from people. I don't do that. I mean, I'm an individual, independent musician, and just like most people these days, music has become very democratized, and everybody can now do some music at home. If you've got a keyboard and a computer and some software, anybody can produce, pretty good music these days. You know, you've got all kinds of mixing and mastering tools available to you. I did have some experience doing some studio work as well, which helped me a lot in terms of mastering and mixing. So although I did get help on that for the first album, I had a bit more confidence in doing it for the second. And it hopefully, you know, if I keep going, it will get better. But a lot of people, you know, see a lot of, I've put a lot of effort into getting in touch with people, and you know, I've got a lot of DJ friends, you know, the radio DJs, internet radio, who you know, love the music, and they play the tracks, and they featured it as album of the week. And that doesn't translate, you know, people might think, well, you must be selling lots of downloads and CDs. Well, no, that's not really happening, but it's not my goal. You know, my goal is to get the music out there, and if people like it, then you know, it's good for them, and it makes me feel better about it, that I'm doing something that people enjoy, not just me. You know, I want to make music that I like to listen to.
Yes.
And you know, people like me, my age, have all got that grounding in that kind of music, and they're also listening to new things as well. So hopefully they'll find something in there. It's quite, you know, I think it's quite varied. It takes lots of different influences and structure.
What are some of their favorite songs?
Ones which seem to crop up, well, looking at the statistics in terms of, you know, there's been lots of Bandcamp plays, but I've also got Spotify plays, and as you know, that doesn't make any money. But I think the top ones have been things like the first track, Mood Swings and Roundabouts, which, as you know, it's kind of touches on my Yes influences, going back, the kind of Chris Squire bass, and that sort of, and the changes in keys and tempos and things like that. And the other tracks are also Hope and Song of the Siren, and surprisingly Warlords, because that's the 15-minute epic, and you know, it takes requires some dedication to listen to the whole of that. But that was always something that's something that's been probably 30 years in the making. You know, it's been through various evolutions, but I decided, you know, now was the time to put it all together. You know, it's almost cinematic in the scope, in terms of there's and also symphonic, and that there's an early part which is bits of themes that go through the rest of the song, and then the different moods as it takes you through the story. You know, it's a story that anybody can make up in their own heads by listening to it. You know, there's no specific historical thing about it. It's just generally how you know, we seem to be a warlike creature, and people take advantage of that. You know.
Definitely. Do you? I know you mentioned it's not really a cohesive band, so to speak, but do you have any plans to do tours this year or next year?
Well, I have had inquiries from people saying, you know, you should, or if you get a band together, we'll put you on, you know, such and such festival in 2 years' time or whatever. I would have to find. I think I'd have to cut down the scope of the band in terms of, but it doesn't mean to say we can't. It's not possible. I mean, all the songs I could sit down and play the main song parts on acoustic guitar. You know, one of the things is, if you can play a song on a acoustic guitar, then it should sound good in any format. But you know, it has to be a good song in the first place. So getting we would have to be selective, I think, about which tracks we did. But I think we could put a set together, and Yael, the singer, I mean, she's buying a house about 3 doors down from me, so we could get together and work on that. We do know a drummer, we do know a bass player who could do it, and possibly even a couple of keyboard players. But I'm sure if we were determined enough and dedicated enough, we'd find people who are willing to join in and help us, even if it was just a handful of gigs, you know, a short tour or something like that. It'd be worth it to actually get the music out there. The idea excites me, but
no.
I did 30 years of gigging, and I also know the pitfalls.
Yeah, Yeah.
I don't think my knees can take it.
It's a lot of, yeah, a lot of
Yeah,
standing and
yeah, carrying gear around, so
carrying gear around. Well, mood swings and roundabouts is wonderful. And yes, I definitely heard yes vocal or yes type vocals. I'm not saying
yeah,
you're
yeah.
copying John or anything like
It's,
that.
it's sort of a nod
But
towards, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Anything else you wanted to mention about that song? Because that really it kicks the album off real well. Gets everyone
Well,
going.
it's funny how it came about because that's actually a new one rather than something I was working on previously, or perhaps bits of the instrumental parts I'd been working on, but there was no song around it.
Mhm.
I was pushing a shopping trolley around in
Yeah,
a
yeah,
local large store, and I
I
was
remember.
walking down the aisle, and I heard these couple of old guys talking. Obviously, they were just having a catch up, and one said to the other, "Oh, how's the missus then?" And the other one said, "Oh, the usual mood swings and roundabouts." And I got down the aisle, and I had to quick type it into my iPhone. I thought I've got to use
Remember
that,
that.
that just became the basis of the song, and it was about, it can, like a lot of the lyrics, they can be taken at face value, or if you peel away the layers, there's probably little hidden meanings. But in one respect, although it's quite an upbeat and jolly piece of music, and you want to get up and jump around to it, it's about separation between two people who disagree on musical tastes. You can imagine one of them's a complete yes nut, and the other one is not interested at all. And so it talks about a song too long, or a word in your ear, that sort of thing. It's so it's about a breakup, but with a sense of humor.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about the title track, "A Difficult Second"? And I you you kind of hinted at the meaning behind it, but that's also the title of the album. So if you
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
go
It's
into that.
it I think I wanted something, not to reflect the difficulty of the last few years, but uh, it sounds a little kind of off the wall. There's some sort of flattened fifths and all kinds of weird things going on in there, and then it sort of changes from one thing to another. But I wanted it to be uplifting as well, having come out of a difficult few years. And I think I sort of zoned into a bit of Jeff Beck somewhere,
Yeah.
that kind of boogie blues type of thing. And I love the Fender Rhodes type sound on the electric piano, and it just kind of rocks along, but then sort of takes a turn into sort of a bit of walking bass jazz, and piano solos, and then back into the riff. And Sharon went did some fantastic drumming on it. If you listen to it, it's just incredible what he does. Lots of stuff which I have got. He did video everything he did, and that's what I'm saying about there will be videos at some point of some of the tracks, and that's certainly one of them that I've started working on, but just not getting the time at the moment. But yeah, you'll see him at work, as it were.
All right.
That was about I just wanted something upbeat, and that would sound a bit kind of odd. Maybe that maybe I'm trying to think of somebody else that might have influenced it. Maybe it might sound odd Zappa, but that kind of weird sort of sound effect of the guitar at the beginning and the chromatic scale up, but then getting into a sort of a kind of more of a boogie guitar, let's say like Jeff Beck type of thing. Again, another guitarist I've admired and listened to.
The Light of My Life is very deep, and it sounds like a personal song.
It is again it's multi-layered, and it's on the face of it, it's about people we've lost, and specifically in the music world. It seems every day now we hear of loss of musicians that we've grown up with, listening to, but we do have their music, and their music keeps them alive, and that their music is captured on record, and or it's recorded in various formats, whatever. But it's also about someone's personal loss, who was in a relationship with a musician who, they were very close, and unfortunately, tragedy struck and they were taken all too soon, but they did manage to get their music down, and that's in some way, provides some strength for that individual to be able to listen to that music, and that provides the light in the darkness, as it were. So I can relate to it through friends who've lost loved ones who are musicians, but we still listen to their music.
Well, definitely. Shifting Sands almost sounds like something off of Caravan. I can never get this right. Caravanserai.
Caravanserai, yes, yeah. This is
Same
where
thing.
when we got Sharon to do the drumming for the first album, Jeremy and I went out to Tel Aviv. We'd arranged for someone to hire a studio for the day, and Sharon did all the drums for the first album in one day. I mean, it was a 12-hour shift to do, eventually 40 minutes of music, but there was a lot of work that he'd done prior to going into the studio, and he did several takes. Do you like this one? Do you like that one? Whatever. So it did take all day. I mean, the guy's stamina is incredible, and all we had to do was go thumbs up. That was good. But we went to listen to some Oriental rock bands, and through Jeremy, I got to know a guy called Yossi Sassi, who's leads the Yossi Sassi and the Oriental Rock Orchestra. Fantastic musicians. Their guitarist Benazar is also in Steroid Puppets, who released an album this year, which also is a must listen to. It's just fantastic. It's some of it's metal, but some of it leans that way. But it's very skillful playing. He's a Berkeley University graduate. He's or Berkeley School of Music. But there's delicacy and harmony and beautiful things going on in that album as well. So we got to know Yossi very well. He's a good friend now, and through him I listened to his albums and loved the Middle Eastern sounds and the instruments. His daughter also, Danielle, plays flute in the Oriental Rock Orchestra, and she's got her own band as well, Storchy. But everyone you bump into in Tel Aviv seems to be a musician. So that kind of influenced me in this one. I always wanted to sort of blend in some kind of world music, and this was a good start for me. I liked the Arabic scales, the interesting scales that they use, and the instrumentation. So I bought myself an oud, although it's not. The original oud is more like a lute, very intricate carvings and everything else. But I bought this very modern version.
Oh,
You
wow.
can see here, it's got a piezoelectric pickup in here, so you can't see it, but you can plug it in here, and it's got controls here, and it's got 11 strings. So you've got this kind of resonating one, and then you've got pairs of strings a bit like a mandolin, and it's fretless. So that's the challenge. So I sort of introduced that into a lot of songs, but it took a lot of practice to learn by ear. So you can't look to see where your fingers are on the frets. You have to really use your ear, much like playing a violin or fretless bass, which I've also indulged in. So that's how that came to be. The shifting sands is kind of some thinking I was doing about the complexities of the politics in the Middle East. And, you look from the International Space Station at the world, you can't see borders and boundaries and things like that. And sands, the boundaries that are set now weren't the same as they were thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago. They keep shifting, and the sands of time will change all of that. And all it needs is people to really start thinking about themselves as a human race and working and living together and trying to solve all these problems. But no, we're still working to boundaries and maps and flags and so on and so forth. But we can have those, but respect each other. But that kind of leads into Eastern Eyes, which is the lyrics of that blend in. So that's why those two tracks are together. They could have been done as one, but I preferred them as two separate songs. And somebody's persuaded, well, not persuaded me, I didn't need persuading, but somebody said it'd be nice to have an extended version of Shifting Sands. A kind of a meditative piece or whatever in the middle or whatever. And I've actually started, well, I've almost finished working on that, and it's gone from about 7 minutes to 15. So I've introduced flute and lots of sections in the middle, which I'll probably do as a giveaway at some point. Just it was somebody said it as a joke, and I've just done it. And it's kept me sort of busy musically in the meantime. So yeah, so I've covered Shifting Sands and Eastern Eyes with that. It's just trying to get people to think beyond boundaries, and
which we all
maybe
need
it could, because for the sake of the children that we refer to.
Yeah, to protect this world.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we don't have what's going on over in Ukraine.
Yeah.
We don't need that. I mean,
no respect for boundaries there. Just I thought those days had gone, 70 years ago, but it's still, there's still regimes out there which have their eyes on land.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm not sort of, I'm not political one way or another. I just want people to kind of, grow up a bit and look forward to a better world, and maybe people will criticize that, but what's wrong with that? I think I saw a quote, I don't know whether it's real or not, but it was someone saying all this talk of left wing and right wing, nothing can fly without the right and left wings working together. Otherwise you go off in circles. So there's some wisdom in that, and maybe this 50-50 split of the Senate or whatever, it will create tension, but maybe the USA will start flying forwards. Anyway,
well,
it's not for me to comment on the politics of the USA or the UK.
No, we're all hoping over here. I definitely am on the left wing, but we're all hoping over here that maybe the MAGA stuff is going to go by the wayside, and the other side is going to say, okay, that didn't work. Let's leave this alone.
And that's how it works. Yeah.
Let's go back to just talking with each other and helping the country. I mean, yes, both are going to want to win our side of the story, but let's do it for the country. And if we can all agree on that, I think, it'll be a lot more functional.
Yeah. Well, speaking of functional, we're hoping for a functional government here, but
you guys are going through
it's taking its time.
Similar. Yeah. Well, Song of the Siren is similar to those. And I gotta, we have about a little over a minute. And then it's but it's gonna stop. And if you're willing to stay, I'm willing to keep going. Yeah. It'll stop because I can't stop it, so it'll stop, and then we'll just pick up from there. But do you want to talk a little bit about the Song of the Siren? I noticed, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but you do sound, and everyone probably compares British singers to Kate Bush, but no, you really do sound like her on this one. And
well, that'll be your L.
And you do talk about Greek mythology on this one. Do you want to talk a little bit about that if we have time? And if not, we can. It looks like we might be running out of time. Do you want to start that, or
should we restart?
It's almost, it's like 30.
Or it does it automatically. Okay.
No, it's going to cut off in less than a minute. So if you want to, it's up to you. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or?
Well, I when I was younger, I did take an interest in Greek mythology, and I used to do a lot of painting, and a lot of my painting was around Greek mythology, but combined with science fiction. It was a bit of fun. But so I was interested in that, and And again, it was a it's about Greek mythology, but it's also about female predators, predatory behaviors.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a bit of ancient and modern in there.
that's true. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember some of the lyrics were rough.
yeah.
Um,
So again, interpret it as you will. It's but again,